Okay, so if you're listening to any kind of music right now, chances are at some point electricity is involved.
Oh, almost guaranteed. It's everywhere.
And today, we're going to track that entire journey of sound. I mean, from these massive room-sized generators that barely worked,
Right.
all the way to the sophisticated software that fits right on your phone. This is the secret history of electronic sound.
It really is a story about pure innovation. It's about inventors who looked at a violin or a drum and just said, what if we could do this without physical instruments at all?
What if we just use electricity?
Exactly.
And that very first step into this electrified future was just monumental. We're talking about the telharmonium from the early 1900s.
Yeah, and when you say monumental, you mean that physically, too.
I keep reading it weighed over 200 tons. I mean, that's just insane.
It is. To put that in perspective for you, that's heavier than a fully grown blue whale. It was this engineering behemoth.
So what was it even doing?
It used these massive dynamos, basically large electrical generators, to produce these incredibly stable electrical signals. These weren't amplified sounds. They were pure electrical waves that represented musical notes.
And the truly mind-blowing part, for me, was how they distributed it. They actually sent these signals through standard telephone wires.
Yeah, to paying subscribers. Think about that moment. It was the first time in history that music was truly separated from the performer and transmitted live, purely as energy, over a huge distance.
So you could be sitting in your office in downtown New York.
And listening to the telharmonium playing live from New Jersey, you'd have a speaker horn attached right to your phone line.
Music transmission over the phone line. That's the big aha moment that kicks off this whole dive.
For sure. But while the telharmonium was all about that massive scale, just a little later, in 1919, we got an instrument that was focused entirely on radical new expression. The theremin. Leon Theremin, a Russian inventor, gave us one of the most iconic sounds in film history. And it's still unique because you play it entirely without touching it.
Right. It's that spooky wailing sound from all those old sci-fi films. But how does it work? I mean, if your hands never make contact.
Well, it has two antennas, and they create these electromagnetic fields around the instrument.
Okay.
So when you move one hand closer to the vertical antenna, you disrupt that field, and that changes the pitch of the note, higher or lower.
And the other hand.
You move that hand toward the horizontal loop, and that controls the volume. Louder, softer. It takes incredible control.
So the telharmonium proved electricity could make sound. But the theremin, it seems like it proved that technology could offer completely new ways of expression.
Exactly. That's the key. It wasn't trying to imitate a piano. It was inventing a whole new sonic language. And for decades after, engineers were trying to shrink these room-sized experiments down into something a real performer could actually use.
Okay, let's unpack that shift. From, giant electrical plants to something a musician could actually put on a stage. That brings us to the analog revolution of the 1960s.
And the birth of the modern synthesizer.
When you say synthesizer, most people think of one name, Robert Moog.
Right. Before Moog, the few sound-making computers we had were still room-sized and just incredibly complex. Moog's genius was taking the core parts, oscillators, filters, amplifiers, and packaging them into these modules that were smaller and, relatively affordable.
So a synthesizer's goal is to create a sound wave with electricity and then shape it. What are all those famous knobs and sliders actually doing?
The core job is wave shaping. You start with an oscillator that creates a raw electrical wave. That's the sounds-like recipe.
And then the musician uses the filters to, chip away at it?
That's a great way to put it. It's like a sculptor with a block of marble.
Okay.
If you have a bright, buzzy sound, you can use a filter to remove all the high, sharp frequencies, and suddenly you have a deep, muffled, warm tone.
We hear that word analog all the time. How is that different from the digital stuff that came later?
An analog synth, like a Moog, uses continuous electrical voltage. Think of it like a hose turning on and off. And because it's a physical process, there are these tiny imperfections, a slight hum, a little grift in the sound, and that's what people call that warmth.
And they were not easy to use. I know musicians had to physically connect dozens of patch cables just to create one sound.
That's right. And if you unplugged it, poof, the sound was gone forever. There were no presets, no memory. You had to build every sound from scratch, every single time.
A labor of love.
Definitely. But while Moog was creating new sounds from scratch, a totally different idea was popping up. Composers were asking, why create sound when we can just use any sound the world already provides?
That sounds like music concrete. Concrete music.
Exactly. This happened mostly in European studios, and it was all about physical manipulation using magnetic tape recorders.
So they were taking sounds from the real world, the
Yeah.
concrete world, like
Yeah.
trains, birds, doors slamming.
Yep. And turning them into musical material. The process was super low tech but required so much patience, they'd physically cut the magnetic tape with scissors.
So if you wanted a drum loop,
You'd cut a piece of tape with the drum sound, glue the ends together to make a physical loop, and then play it on the machine so it repeated over and over and over.
wow, that is the first version of sampling, done entirely by hand.
It absolutely is. And they could get amazing pitch changes just by changing the playback speed. Speed the tape up, the sound goes high and cartoonish. Slow it down, and a normal voice becomes this deep, menacing drone.
That's a powerful idea.
Yeah.
Any noise can be music. And that really paved the way for how producers work on computers today.
And that transition happened in a big way in the 1980s with the digital shift. We moved from relying on that fluctuating analog electricity to relying on digital information. Zeros and ones stored on computer chips.
Which solved the two biggest analog problems,
No.
right? Cost and memory.
Exactly. Digital synths were lighter, cheaper, and crucially, they could finally store hundreds of precise sounds in their internal memory. You didn't lose your work when you turned the machine off.
And that stability created a totally different sound. I'm thinking of the Yamaha DX7.
A classic. One of the best-selling synths of all time. It didn't use analog filters. It used complex math called FM synthesis to create sound.
And what was the result? How did that math change the sound of music?
The sound became incredibly clean, bright, almost crystalline. It totally defined the shiny, crisp sound of 1980s pop music. Think of those glossy electric pianos and bells.
A huge change from the warm hum of the old analog gear.
Night and day. And because the gear got so much cheaper, it moved out of the elite studios and into the hands of teenagers in their bedrooms. The digital revolution democratized everything.
But the truly critical moment in the 80s wasn't just the sound itself. It was the communication system.
Right. How do you get gear from 6 different companies to all talk to each other? The answer was MIDI.
MIDI, Musical Instrument Digital Interface, the universal translator for music tech, came out in 1983.
And this is a point that often confuses people. MIDI does not transmit actual sound. It's not an audio cable.
It's data.
It's just data, a set of instructions. It tells an instrument which note was played, how hard the key was hit, how long it was held down.
So my keyboard from one company can send those instructions to a sound module from a totally different company. And it just works.
It just works because they both understand the MIDI language. That standardization was huge. It meant a composer could record a performance and hours later decide to change the trumpet part to a French horn part without replaying a single note.
It turned the computer into the central brain of the entire studio.
A concept that's still foundational to everything we do today. And that rise of the computer brain directly led to the rise of the drum machine.
Because now you could program these precise, repetitive rhythms that a human drummer just couldn't maintain for hours on end.
And if we're talking drum machines, we have to talk about the Roland TR-808.
The legendary 808, especially for that incredibly deep, booming bass kick drum.
It's ironic because when it first came out, it was considered a failure. People said the sounds, the fake claps, the synthesized hi-hats were just too robotic.
Too fake compared to real drums.
But musicians saw past that, especially in cities like New York and Chicago. Artists in the new hip-hop and dance scenes grabbed the 808 because its unique sounds and that powerful sub-bass were perfect for driving relentless rhythmic music.
And the benefit was that reliability. The machine could keep a perfect tempo for hours, which is essential if you're making a track for a club night.
This is exactly why electronic music moved so quickly from labs into dance halls and clubs. New genres like house music in Chicago and techno in Detroit were born, all rely on those steady, repetitive patterns.
And that deep bass you can literally feel vibrating in your chest.
Yes, but that brings up an important point. If machines are making the sounds, who's in charge of the party?
The DJ. The disc jockey.
The DJ became the curator, the trendsetter, the lead performer. They're the ones reading the crowd's energy and picking the next track.
And their most important technical skill is beat matching.
Matching the speeds or tempos of 2 different songs perfectly, so when you transition from one to the next, the dancers barely even notice. It's seamless.
To do that, they're using headphones to listen to the next track.
Before the audience hears it, yeah. And they use equalizers and filters to smooth the blend, so the bass from one track doesn't clash with the next. And then, of course, there's the art of scratching.
An iconic part of hip-hop culture. Speaking of blending sounds, we have to talk about sampling again, but the digital version this time.
which is so much faster and more versatile than cutting tape. Digital sampling means taking a small piece of an existing recording, a drum break, a horn section, and weaving it into a brand new song.
It's the core of hip-hop and so much modern pop. It lets you create this musical collage.
And modern software makes it instant. You can take a 4-second clip and immediately change its key, speed it up, slow it down, anything you want with just a few clicks.
Which brings us to where we are now. The computer itself is the studio. As personal computers got more and more powerful, they just replaced millions of dollars worth of physical hardware.
We call the software that does this the Digital Audio Workstation, or the DAW. Programs like Ableton, Logic, or Pro Tools let you record, mix, and edit an entire song on just a laptop.
And the accessibility is what's so fascinating. Because of virtual instruments, a teenager in their bedroom now has access to sounds that sound exactly like a grand piano, a full orchestra, or the most expensive synthesizer ever made.
The power of a full recording studio literally fits inside a device in your backpack. It means the only barrier to making music now is your own imagination, not how much money you have.
And seeing the music visually, as blocks on a screen in the DAW, changed everything too. It's like building with digital Lego bricks.
And beyond pop music, electronic sound has this profound connection to media, like movies and TV.
Oh, for sure. Composers use synthesizers to create specific moods. That cold, mechanical feel for sci-fi or those tense metallic sounds for horror films.
It instantly communicates futuristic or dangerous in a way acoustic instruments often can't. Today, almost every big movie soundtrack blends traditional instruments with heavy electronic beats, and video games rely almost entirely on electronic scores.
So if the laptop is already the entire studio, where do we possibly go next?
Well, technology is advancing faster than ever. We're seeing things that sound like science fiction becoming real.
Like artificial intelligence.
Exactly. We're seeing AI used not just to organize music, but to help composers generate entirely new melodies and rhythms. AI can analyze styles and suggest patterns a human might never have thought of.
Pushing creativity even further. And what about virtual reality?
Virtual reality might soon let people attend 3D concerts from home, and there are new instruments being invented that use sensors to track your body movements, turning dance directly into sound.
It's an incredible journey, from that 200-ton telharmonium that only a few people could hear, to the laptop in your backpack that can generate a symphony. It just shows that technology constantly unlocks this limitless potential for art.
Absolutely. Every sound you hear in modern music is built on these foundational ideas we've talked about.
Good luck with your studies.
The real question for the next generation is this. When a machine can learn to compose music, is the machine still an instrument, or has it become the artist? That's what you get to figure out.